What is the #1 killer in the black community? Well, it's not cancer, not the police, not even the Ku Klux Klan. Every day, 1,000 black babies are aborted, and the media who shout Black Lives Matter won't say a word. According to the Radiance Foundation's Ryan Bomberger, that's because the civil rights movement has been hijacked. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Ryan Bomberger grew up with 12 other siblings. 9 were adopted, including him. When Ryan was 13, he found out that his biological mother became pregnant with him after she was raped. The news left him devastated, but soon Ryan realized he had a story to tell. In his book, Not Equal, Ryan educates others on the horrors of the abortion industry and offers powerful proof that triumph can come from tragedy.
Ryan Bomberger is here with us now. Welcome to the program today.
It's great to be here with you.
So we're looking at that beautiful picture of your family. I was telling him we have a sign in our house that says, "You call it family, we call it chaos," but I'm sure that was your time
exactly
growing
the same.
up. How did you go from, knowing you were adopted and just the adjustment of growing up, just growing up in the world today to being such a pro-life advocate? How did those things mesh together?
Well, I found out at 13 my story, so it kind of rewrote everything, and it was a bit radical, and it was tumultuous because teenage years are already crazy enough.
Yes, when all was going well.
Yeah, exactly. But it was at that point that I realized I did a speech in public school in 8th grade, and it was persuasion speech on abortion. And I realized I had a story to tell. And my parents, Andrew and Henry Bomberger, they're amazing people. They didn't know what they were getting into.
Obviously, yeah.
Adopting, 10 children, had 3 biological or homemade kids, but they didn't know what they were getting into, but they knew that they loved the Lord, and out of that love for the Lord, they love people, and they loved us. This photo, which is probably a little similar to your family photo, but it really just displays the love of Christ, and because our parents loved us, they unleashed purpose. In our lives. They understood that we had inherent and equal worth, and they encouraged us, find that purpose that God has for you.
That is. Yeah. We were talking about abortion in the black community a moment ago. How big a problem is this, Ryan?
It's huge. I mean, everyone wants to talk about racism. There's racism here, racism there. There's racism in every facet of American society except in the one industry that kills for a living. I mean, Planned Parenthood alone kills 247 black lives every single day. Yet people want to cry racism, but when it comes to Planned Parenthood, they're silent. So those same social justice warriors say nothing about that industry.
So talk a little bit about civil rights leaders. I mean, I marvel at the fact that anyone can research and find out about Margaret Sanger, about what the purpose was in founding Planned Parenthood. Right. Why do civil rights leaders not grab hold of that reality and make it an issue?
Some used to. Back in the 60s, there were leaders of the NAACP that called out the abortion industry, called out Planned Parenthood. Fannie Lou Hamer, famed anti-poverty activist and voting rights activist, she considered abortion genocide in the black community. But yet there is this, there's a spiritual dynamic to this. There's a willful blindness, and of course, there's also money. Yeah. A lot of money speaks. Planned Parenthood actually funds a number of these organizations that have basically decided to shill for the abortion industry. It's tragic that there's so much silence when you're talking about so many deaths and the destruction of beautiful possibility. And so I call them out. I say the industry has been hijacked.
You also say that Planned Parenthood is planned propaganda.
Every day, all day. I mean, when they tweet things out, for instance, that, it's statistically safer for black women to abort their child than to go through pregnancy, come on. That's systemic racism. I mean, there's been a disproportionate targeting for years and years, for decades and decades, and yet people don't want to see it for what it is. But Planned Parenthood depends on their abortion revenue. I mean, they're a billion-dollar industry. They're not giving up this money. I mean, we talk about the sins of humanity, and greed is one of those driving sins. But yet people want to overlook this and ignore the fact that there is a specific targeting. There has been historically, and there still is presently.
One of the arguments, or maybe several of them, would be, these women are poor, they can't afford to raise their children anyway, the foster care system is broken, there aren't enough parents like yours to adopt children, so that it's necessary to do this. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'm an adoptive parent, too. My wife, Bethany, and I have 4 children. 2 of our children are adopted, and we didn't have the financial means. People are constantly told that they can't overcome. And that's the thing that's so frustrating. Amazing things have risen out of poverty. Look at Dr. Ben Carson, for instance.
Yeah.
His mom was a single mom. She worked multiple jobs. There are things that we do to self-sacrifice so that others can be elevated. And in this culture, this me culture saying, well, this is the easier way out. You won't be able to achieve this, or you won't be able to get your education. All that's untrue. There are systems of support. There are pregnancy centers. There are people out there who will pour their lives into those who are in crisis.
And there are lines of people waiting to adopt.
Yes.
Who desperately want children. The title of your book is Not Equal, Civil Rights Gone Wrong. What do you mean by that?
Okay, first of all, this was inspired by a surreal experience with the NAACP, actually, that sued me and sued the Radiance Foundation for a news article where I called out their radical pro-abortion actions and positions. And so I titled the article, The National Association for the Abortion of Colored People.
Wow.
They didn't like the title.
So,
They sued me, and they sued,
feathers.
and it was crazy. It's a free speech issue, and so it was kind of born out of that because I thought, wait a minute, an organization that I grew up revering and loving was criticizing me and challenging me and wanting to sue me. And anyway, we were represented by Alliance Defending Freedom. 2 years in federal court, actually in this area, in Norfolk, actually. We lost in the first federal court level, and then we had to appeal to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. But I look at these so-called civil rights organizations and wonder, why are they not on the side of the most vulnerable, the most marginalized, the most targeted with death? And so that's what the book was born out of.
You also say that one of the biggest advocates for abortion is the LGBTQ community. What's their advantage in that?
Many in those organizations, like the Lambda Legal Defense Organization, says that reproductive rights, as they call them, and LGBT rights are one and the same. They believe that they are inextricably tied together. And so you have every single major LGBT group that decries discrimination on one hand and yet supports the most violent form of discrimination on the other hand. And so I call them out as well.
You have an organization called the Radiance Foundation, make a difference, shine where you're placed, bloom where you're planted. What's the Radiance Foundation doing?
The Radiance Foundation was created by my wife, Bethany, and I. She's actually the one in charge. She's the executive director, and we want to illuminate, educate, motivate. We want to illuminate the truth that every human life has purpose, educate people about a myriad of social issues in the context of God-given purpose, and then motivate them, because what good is our knowledge, what good is our faith if we don't put it into action?
Yeah, it's just so interesting. Terms like racism bandied about so freely today keep us from moving forward. I mean, there is an agenda, folks. Be aware of it. And be aware of this book. Ryan has so much to say. He's walking the walk, and it's not just talk for him. Shouldn't be for any of us. For more eye-opening information about the abortion industry, be sure to get Ryan's book and other situations in our culture today. It's called Not Equal, Civil Rights Gone Wrong. You can find out how to get a copy by going to CBN.com. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Terry.
Being here. Great to have you here.